There's a lot of different controversy about fluoride. Some people want fluoride in their drinking water and use a fluoride toothpaste. Some people hate the idea of fluoride and they want to filter it out of their water and they don't use a fluoride toothpaste. The reason people use fluoride in their dental products is to prevent cavities. But what if you don't want to use fluoride but still want to prevent cavities? Is that even possible? Well, the short answer is yes. No one needs fluoride to prevent getting a cavity. And in this video, I want to talk about some ways that you can definitely prevent getting cavities and keep your teeth clean without using any fluoride. Now, I want you to know that I personally do recommend fluoride because I think it's one of the best ways to prevent getting cavities, and I do think it is totally safe to use at our current dosages in the United States. But there are ways to keep your teeth strong and even strengthen and remineralize them without using it. So let's get into the video. So first off, what does fluoride do and why do we use it to prevent getting cavities? If we understand this, then we can try to use the same science for something that's not fluoride related, but still help remineralize our teeth. So essentially, fluoride makes your teeth more resistant to acids. So the way this works is when fluoride comes in contact with your teeth, it changes the structure of your teeth. Your teeth are made up of these hydroxyapatite crystals. Now, normally your enamel will break down at a pH of 5.5. So if something gets that acidic or a little bit more acidic than that, then your enamel will start to demineralize. But with fluoride, that fluoride ion will swap out that hydroxide ion in those hydroxyapatite crystals. So it's no longer called hydroxyapatite, it's now called fluorapatite because it's a fluoride ion instead of that hydroxide ion. These fluorapatite crystals are a lot more compact. They're a lot more dense. They can be held tighter together. And the reason is that fluoride ion, those electrons are more tighter together than that hydroxide ion. So it makes that whole crystalline structure more compact. And it makes sense that something more compact would be harder to break down than something that's more spread apart. Now this fluorapatite crystal will break down at a pH of 4.5. So something has to be a lot more acidic to break down fluorapatite than hydroxyapatite. And right now on the market, this is the best way to prevent getting cavities because it strengthens your teeth so much. And not only that, it can even remineralize a cavity that is starting. So there's something called an incipient lesion. This is basically when you have a cavity that is just starting off. It's still on that outer layer of that tooth. It's just in your enamel. When a cavity is in this state, it can still be remineralized and prevented from getting bigger. And in this instance, fluoride is really, really good at preventing that cavity from getting bigger. And this is why so many dentists, including me, recommend using fluoride. And also because it's backed by decades, almost 100 years of research. But some people still choose to avoid fluoride for one reason or another, and that's fine. Rather than arguing about why it's safe and why you should use it, I'd rather just talk about ways to keep your teeth clean and healthy without it. And also I made other videos talking about fluoride too anyway, so I'm putting a link in the description below if you want to learn more about that. So what can you do instead? Well, the biggest thing is going to be involving your diet and nutrition. Specifically, it's going to be how frequently you are consuming carbohydrates and sugar and acidic drinks or other acidic foods. There's a bacteria in your mouth called Streptococcus mutans that thrives on eating any carbohydrate, especially sugar. Once you eat anything, these Strep mutans bacteria will eat those carbohydrates and they will release lactic acid as a byproduct. This lactic acid is what damages your teeth and causes those holes or those cavities to form. This is really important to remember because your diet is the #1 cause of cavities, even more than a lack of brushing and flossing. So your diet is more important than brushing and flossing, and especially more important than just using fluoride. Now the key here is how frequently you are eating these foods. It doesn't matter if you eat them every now and then, but what matters is how frequently they are entering your mouth. Because even let's say if you're taking a sip of a Coca-Cola throughout the day. Let's say you're drinking just 1 can of Coke, but you sip on that throughout the whole day. That's going to be terrible because even that tiny sip is introducing a lot of acid into your mouth, and it's also introducing all those carbohydrates into your mouth. It doesn't take that many carbohydrates for your Strep mutans in your mouth to have a field day of eating. Instead, it would be better to try to have that Coke all in one sitting and preferably during a meal. And the reason has to do with your saliva. So anytime you eat, your teeth start to demineralize. And the reason is because these carbohydrates, these acids are entering your mouth. The acids are pretty simple. It directly is going to demineralize. It's going to lower the pH in your mouth. Once it gets to that 5.5 threshold for that hydroxyapatite, then your teeth will start to demineralize. On top of that, these Strep mutans bacteria is going to eat those carbohydrates, and then they're going to release more lactic acid and then go down and push that pH threshold down to get more acidic. So if after you eat a meal that's high in carbohydrates and high in acid, you give your mouth time and don't introduce anything else into it, then you're going to give your saliva time to build up, because your saliva builds up anytime you eat anything, but also your saliva is going to stick around in your mouth. It doesn't go anywhere. And if you give that saliva time, it has a lot of antibacterial properties. It can buffer out a lot of those acids and those bacteria, and it can help clean a lot of the stuff in your mouth. So give it about 30 minutes or so, and your mouth will start to get more towards a normal pH. But if you're constantly snacking, or you're not really giving your saliva time to build up, like let's say you keep eating every couple hours or so, or you keep drinking something acidic every couple hours, or you start snacking on, let's say, a bag of chips or some goldfish or something throughout the day, then you're never really giving that saliva time to build up. And also, these starchy foods are going to keep feeding these bacteria in your mouth, and it's going to allow those bacteria to grow. One thing these bacteria like to do over time is form a biofilm. This is called plaque. Plaque is this biofilm, or this cluster of bacteria that have basically made their own house in your mouth, and they will attach to your teeth. So essentially, the more frequently these foods are entering your mouth, the more likely these bacteria are going to start housing and living rent-free in your mouth. And you might be surprised how many different foods have carbs in them that can be damaging your teeth. Even healthy foods like granola bars or yogurts that have flavorings in them, or even like fruit juices, they can be really acidic, they have a lot of sugar in them, and even dried fruits, they can stick around in your mouth, and they also have a ton of sugar. And it's also important to look out for acidic foods and drinks. Keep in mind, pretty much anything other than water is going to be acidic. Even coffee and tea are going to be pretty acidic. So you might think that diet soda is fine because there's no sugar in it and it's not going to really cause cavities, but it's still going to lower that pH in your mouth, and it's still going to make your teeth more susceptible to getting cavities because they're going to be demineralizing. Some key specific acids to look out for and to avoid in your drinks, like your diet sodas, are citric acid and phosphoric acid. Any acid is going to be bad for your teeth, but these two ones are especially bad because they are chelators. That means they will try to leach out and bind to metal ions. And when they do that, they form a stable structure. Now, why is this a problem in your mouth? Well, because the metal ions they'll find are calcium, and the calcium is found in your teeth, in your enamel. So when they leach out the calcium in your teeth, it makes your teeth much more vulnerable to getting cavities and a lot more vulnerable to demineralizing, to losing their minerals. So if you find yourself eating or drinking a lot of these sugary or carb-heavy or acidic foods and drinks throughout the day, the biggest thing is going to be limiting the frequency or combining them with a meal. So that way you have more saliva already during that meal time. And another pro tip, let's say you like to have an acidic drink or something, or an acidic snack, like even an orange, which is healthy, before you go to sleep. You don't want to brush your teeth right after, because that acid has entered your mouth and those teeth have gotten weaker. And now you're going to use an abrasive toothpaste. Even if it doesn't have fluoride in it, those toothpastes can still have some abrasive materials in them. Even like a baking soda DIY toothpaste. All those things can be abrasive. Even your toothbrush in general can be abrasive. So it doesn't matter whether you use fluoride or not. You want to wait about 30 minutes after eating or drinking something acidic before you brush your teeth. And the reason is that saliva can build up and wash away and clean up that acid and buffer out that pH to make your enamel stronger again. Now, the second thing when it comes to your diet is adding more remineralizing foods. So we talked about foods to avoid, what specific foods will cause cavities, but also more specifically, the frequency that these foods enter the mouth is going to cause the biggest problems. But what you also got to keep in mind is your teeth are made of minerals, just like anything else in your body. And if you're not supplying these minerals to your teeth to keep them clean and strong, then they're going to be weaker. So the best minerals you're going to want to have for your teeth are going to be 1, calcium and phosphate, 2, vitamin D, 3, vitamin K2, 4, magnesium, 5, collagen and gelatin. These are all minerals that are already in your teeth or will help remineralize your teeth. So, for example, calcium and phosphorus are 2 minerals that make up your hydroxyapatite crystal. So those calcium and phosphates are going to be important. And you even need protein, specifically that collagen and gelatin, for those healthy teeth and also healthy gums, because protein even plays a big part in the actual structure of your teeth as well. So you're going to get a lot of these minerals from things like dairy, so like cheese, yogurt, milk, even butter. Also leafy greens like kale and spinach. You also get them from a lot of fish like sardines or salmon. These are packed with a ton of calcium and phosphates or vitamin D. And the collagen and gelatin you can get from a lot of different sources like a lot of different meats, bone broths, even collagen and gelatin supplements. And surprisingly, even bell peppers are really good at promoting collagen production. Now, a third point I want to make when it comes to your diet is reducing phytic acid. Now, this one isn't a huge one for me, but if you want to go the extra mile, this will help. Phytic acid is found in things like grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. The reason these can be a problem is because they bind to minerals. They bind to things like calcium, magnesium, and zinc. And this makes it harder for your body to absorb these minerals. Now, the reason I don't think it's as big of a deal is because these foods are generally pretty healthy. So I think the benefits will outweigh the risks of eating these foods. And I did go into detail in another video specifically talking about these phytic acid foods. So I'm putting a link in the description below if you want to learn more about it. But basically the best way to avoid eating these phytic acids is to prepare the foods properly. That means soaking, sprouting, or fermenting these foods will help neutralize the phytic acids. Now, the fourth thing and the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to your diet is how to produce more saliva. We talked about saliva before, but saliva is your natural defense against cavities and also gum disease. So this means making sure you're drinking enough water. If you're dehydrated, then you're not going to produce enough saliva. So that's going to be a huge one, just making sure you're drinking water. And I'd recommend making water your main source of beverage. If you're concerned about cavities and you don't want to use fluoride, just make water your main source of drink, and you can even filter out the fluoride in your water. Now, another really important thing you can start doing is after your meal, start chewing xylitol gum. So it's a sugar-free gum, but instead of any other normal sugar substitute, make sure it has xylitol in it. The reason xylitol is so powerful is because it's the only sugar substitute that we know of that actively prevents cavities. So xylitol is a very, very powerful sugar substitute. So if you include this in your diet, if you have a sugar-free gum that has xylitol after eating, you're not only going to promote more saliva production to help clean away those acids and keep your teeth clean, but also you're going to get the added bonus of that xylitol. And lastly, a point that not many people realize can cause a dry mouth and lower saliva is mouth breathing. It's a lot better to breathe through your nose than it is to breathe through your mouth. I can go into a lot of details about this, but I'm sure you don't want to hear about it all in this video. Luckily, I made a lot of other videos on this topic, so I'm putting a link in the description below if you want to learn more about it. But when it comes to your saliva, when you breathe in and out of your mouth, you're going to be drying up a lot of that saliva in your mouth. If you don't believe me, try fogging up a glass. Try breathing out on a glass and see if you can fog it up. Now try doing the same thing with your nose. You're probably not going to be able to fog that glass up at all with your nose. And the reason is a lot of moisture escapes our body through our mouth when we're exhaling through our mouth. And this is why mouth breathing causes a lot more dehydration and a lot more dry mouth than nose breathing. So a simple tip when you're sleeping is to use a mouth tape. Yes, literally a piece of tape that goes over your lips. The one I like to use is something called 3M micropore paper tape. And this will ensure you keep breathing in and out of your nose and also helps maintain that saliva in your mouth. Now, if you're thinking that I'm crazy and you think that you won't be able to breathe in and out of your nose, I did make other videos on how you can actually start breathing out of your nose better. So I'm putting another link in the description below, so make sure you check that out too. Okay, so we talked a lot about your diet, but what about other things you can use? Like what other dental products would I recommend? So obviously you still want to brush your teeth, but instead of using a fluoride toothpaste, what you can use is a hydroxyapatite toothpaste. Hydroxyapatite is that mineral that makes up your teeth. This is going to be better than not using any type of remineralizing agent because you're still getting some remineralizing with this. It's swapping out those old hydroxyapatite crystals with new hydroxyapatite crystals. Now keep in mind that there aren't that many studies on hydroxyapatite yet, especially compared to fluoride. There's like very minimal studies that are actually done on hydroxyapatite. From what I've seen so far though, it is pretty safe to use. But you also want to make sure that you have enough hydroxyapatite in it. The studies that I've seen, you want to make sure at least 10% hydroxyapatite is in that toothpaste to get at least decent results from using it. Otherwise, you might just be wasting your money, and these hydroxyapatite toothpastes can be pretty expensive. The second ingredient you want to look for is xylitol. Again, we talked about xylitol before, but this xylitol is going to be really, really good to have in your teeth. One, it'll make that toothpaste taste better. You're not supposed to eat it, but at least it'll make it seem like it tastes better. And then also you're going to get that antibacterial bonus from it. As always, you still want to make sure you're brushing 2 times a day, 2 minutes each time, making sure you're cleaning each tooth properly and also flossing your teeth at least once every day. So make sure you're still doing the basics. And also with any toothpaste, a tip you can do is let that toothpaste stick to your teeth. Don't rinse with water right after brushing, because this water is going to rinse away all that fluoride or all that hydroxyapatite, whatever toothpaste you're using. If you're using a hydroxyapatite toothpaste, you want that toothpaste to stick to your teeth, and that's going to help those hydroxyapatite crystals keep remineralizing. Now, before I go, the last thing I want to talk about are some myths, some fluoride-free myths specifically. Number one is oil pulling. Oil pulling does not work. It's not magic, and it does not replace brushing and flossing, and it does not replace fluoride. The only thing that oil pulling really can do is limit some of the bacteria in your mouth. But there have barely been any studies on it. The studies that have been done on it kind of suck. So keep that in mind. It's not a replacement for anything. If you want to do it, go ahead. It's still safe to do, but it's not going to replace anything. Number two is charcoal toothpastes. They do not work. Actually, I hate them because they are very abrasive. I had a friend who said he's going to start using charcoal toothpaste. I told him not to do it. He did it anyway. And what happened was he caused recession on all his teeth because it was so abrasive. It started eating away at his gums, and then he started having a lot of sensitivity because his roots were exposed on his teeth. So don't use charcoal toothpaste. So to recap, I think fluoride is still safe and very effective, but if you don't want to use it, I talked about a lot of things in this video that can help and prevent you from getting cavities, and I'm confident that if you follow the things that I said, you won't need fluoride to prevent getting cavities. So with that being said, do you use a fluoride toothpaste? Let me know in the comment section below, and if not, let me know a different toothpaste that you like to use. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below, and I will see you in the next video. Fluoride is in your toothpaste, in your drinking water, and even in the dental office. But could there be a potential that you're having too much fluoride? In this video, I want to talk about the benefits of fluoride, specifically when it comes to your teeth, but also the risks of having too much fluoride. So what is fluoride? Fluoride is a natural mineral that's found